Hi, so I'm Deb.
And I'm Rachael.
And last year I did a sponsored walk for the Red Cross, which is raising money for refugees in the UK. I can't remember how far I walked. I did a middle one. This year I am walking 22 miles throughout the month, which I knew was pretty pathetic. And then I met Rachael, who's an idiot.
Yeah, I'm going to be doing 108 miles because I am stupid. I'm going to be doing that with my dog Willow, who is under the table. So if you hear clattering and banging, it's because she's got a stick. But yeah, we're going to be doing 108 miles.
So what I wanted to know, I work with young refugees. I have done for about 20 years. So why are you doing this? Why is it important to you?
So I'm doing it just because for me, I really feel strongly about inclusion and about the fact that these often young people, often young professionals like me, or young families like my friends, are put in these positions which are untenable. And because I wanted to do some kind of a sponsored event for a while, because I've been getting more into my running, and this just felt like a really worthy cause. And I got really frustrated with a lot of the kind of ignorance around the issues online and people's responses, because I do really feel like these are people who have existed through the worst things life can throw at you, and then there's another lot of it piled on when they finally think they've got here and they're safe, and so I just think they're one of the worst hits and the least understood and the least supported in a way, so I wanted to do something that would help them.
And you're better at this than me. 22 miles and 108 miles, they're not just random figures.
No, no. So your 22 miles is the Channel crossing. So it's across the Channel, the English Channel, which obviously has been getting a lot of media attention recently. And my 108 miles, that's the distance from Calais to London. So the point is that these are distances that refugees and asylum seekers do take, but they take it in way more dangerous fashions than Deb and I are going to be doing. And at least when we get home, we know we have a possible meal on the table and a nice warm bed to jump into, / a bath / a shower in my case. Yeah, which unfortunately a lot of the people travelling these distances don't.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I work with local unaccompanied asylum seeker children is that we may look at the news and we read and we see something quite abstract and distant. Is that I work with people in Loughborough. I work with people that are actually in our parish. So this is not something that is a million miles away from us. We have refugees and asylum seekers here. And luckily the children that I work with, or young adults, get pretty good support. But seeing the trauma and difficulty that they've been through, it makes it apparent that we're talking about real people. We're not talking about people that come on a whim. This isn't. I was on Twitter today saying to people that they were saying, why don't people stop at France? Why do they come here? They're economic migrants. I've spoken to people in the past, and what I've heard horrific stories about travelling, and the people that traffic the young people here are criminals. Some of them have got experience in trafficking drugs, and it's a very dangerous journey, and that's why it's often young men that do it. And also young men tend to be the ones that get pushed into joining extremist groups or may have been campaigning against oppression.
And I think that's really important, because so often people are like, well, it's not women and children, it's young men, and it's that kind of cognitive dissonance of thinking, well, because it's a young man, they must only be coming for money, and that young men aren't as much at risk of harm or are somehow, you know, bulletproof or bomb-proof or immune from feeling, hello, this is Willow.
And Willow will be walking a long way.
They're somehow immune to a lot of the stuff that we'd say if it happened to a family or a child, we'd be like, that's horrific. So I think there's something about breaking down that stereotype that anybody who's a young man coming in a dinghy across the channel must be doing so just for money. Not least because actually we're not that generous in terms of benefits. They're not entitled to them, and what they can apply for if they are going through the asylum seeker process is really minimal. I think it's £5 a day.
Yeah. It's about £35, a few pence a week, plus accommodation. But that accommodation isn't a four-star mansion.
It's not Butlins.
No, I've been to quite a few of them, and they're not. Obviously, with social distancing, there's a few blips. But we've just had a 16-year-old boy drown trying to make the crossing.
Yeah.
Whatever reason people come here, I work with children, and I say to people, well, what would it take for you to put your child into the hands of criminals, not knowing if they're ever going to make the journey? They could be taken a few miles and killed. Anything could happen on that journey. Some of the boys, and we do have girls as well, tell me about watching people drown on the journey, and some horrific tales of someone being abused as well. I won't go into the details, but there are some nasty things, and people arrive traumatised because of their experiences, but also the journey. You don't do it for fun. You do it because you have to. And, you know, there's lots of arguments which, you know, people want to find out about or ask me about why they come to the UK. Because I ask them, and but these are there are people, there are refugees in our parish that have set up businesses and done a great job in actually making employment, and it's not something that is distant. But the Red Cross in itself, I deal with unaccompanied children. We've got a brilliant backer that help. We commission them to do some of the work for the new arrivals, and there's also kids in foster care. So it is different, but Red Cross works with adults who arrive and also failed asylum seekers.
Right.
And by fail, that might mean that although the asylum system says that they haven't got a case, it's not safe for them to return. They may not get documents, or it just may be that they're terrified of going back. So
and also it's worth remembering that, you know, nearly, I think it's over half or just under half of the initial refusals of asylum claims often will go to court and then be found to be valid. So it's a really long and lengthy process.
Very
anyway. It's a really difficult process.
I've got a young man who's 23 now, and he arrived when he was 14. He still hasn't got a final decision. That's unusual. But the guy speaks with a Leicester accent now. He's, but he can't settle.
I think one fact I saw as well was about how, because when they come here and they're going through that asylum seeker process, they can't work, which is why they have the support of the very generous £5 a day, which isn't even minimum wage. And so it's kind of crazy that, especially because some of these people are skilled, they're doctors, they're lawyers, they're students at universities, they're not just
I met someone today that's just graduated as a Masters of Architect. I've got 2 people at the moment that are heading towards university, and they all arrived with no English. The spirit to do well and to make a life and to contribute towards the country that they've settled in is huge.
That's
along with the
interesting that they
trauma.
didn't speak English, because a lot of people will say, well, they're coming specifically to England, not just staying in France because of the ability to
Them-
speak the language. So what would
Yeah.
you say about that?
Some of them speak a tiny bit of English, because English is obviously taught in a lot of schools and countries, and we've also got the links with the empire in some of countries as well. So there may be an awareness of the alphabet and an awareness of a few sentences, but that's different than being able to say, you know, do well. And I think they learn quickly if they've got that basis, but not all of them have, because in, like, particularly Afghanistan, have not actually been to school. Some of the Kurds as well. In Iran, I think, yes, in Iran, won't go to school because they only learn in Farsi and they speak Kurdish. So it depends on the person, but certainly, there is a feeling that it's easier to settle even if they've got a tiny bit of English.
Right. So why is it, do you think, that they are more likely to come, well, they're not even more likely to come to England, because we have such a tiny percentage of asylum seekers compared to the rest of the globe in this country. We have a really, I think I saw one stat which was like 0.29% last year,
something like that,
of the global asylum seekers,
and most are actually end up
the
in
UK.
Most are in developing countries,
most of them are the surrounding ones to where they've left.
Chad around,
and then
Turkey.
Obviously Germany took a lot, France has a lot, so
the other thing is they say, well, why don't they claim asylum before they get here? Because they can't. The rules say that you have to be in the country to claim asylum. But sometimes they go where the agent tells them to. Sometimes it may well be because they fear.
What do you mean by the agent?
They pay an agent to do the journey, or their family does, may have sold some land or a house. So they are in the hands of agent. They're passed from one agent to another, and they do what they're told.
So these are traffickers, essentially, right?
Yeah.
So they might not ultimately. They'll just get told, "Oh, we're going to England," and then they're off. That's really interesting.
But also, tales of being attacked in other countries, and so they don't feel safe there. There's in Italy, there may be other countries, Libya as well. There is a lot of abuse and exploitation from asylum seekers. So, although it's a country, even Italy, you think EU, and there is some great work the Red Cross are doing in Italy with refugees, helping people recover from abuse.
But I think the money specifically raised from this is only going to UK asylum seekers.
So why do they need money?
Why do they need money? They need it for simple mobile phones so they can stay in contact with their families, basic hygiene packs so they can get things like toiletries, essentials for them to stay like fit and healthy when they're living in these not very nice digs. Transport so they can get to meetings, see their lawyers, see their case
It's not
workers.
easy getting solicitors that take legal aid. You may have to travel a long way to get legal aid, and it's not easy to get someone that will take you through the appeal process.
I didn't realise that until like a couple of weeks ago, that we had the Home Office for the Midlands here in Loughborough. I didn't realise, which explains why we have charities like Backer, I suppose, here on the doorstep.
Oh, no,
but also
actually,
it's quite, I know we have quite good transport links, but it's not, necessarily that easy unless you're getting a train or a bus or...
It's not. The reporting centre, the reason that Backer are here, because I'm that old, I know exactly what I am. But if you arrive in the UK as a child, whichever local authority you end up in, is that the local authority that takes care of you. So like I have this person I met today has been living in Canterbury because he was at Kent University. We still see him. I've got someone in Hayes in Middlesex. We've got people in Grimsby.
So you're having to travel all over.
We have, but mostly obviously we want them we're in Leicestershire, that's where we settle in, but the foster carers may be in Birmingham, so we've got young people in Birmingham. It's wherever they settle, and then they may find that they've got family when they're here. But it's whichever area, and because we've got junction 23, the tachometer for lorries means that they have to stop around about junction 21 or junction 22. We've got the lorry park at 21,
Right.
and then you've got Leicester Forest East. And it's silly things like even like the showers being renovated in one of the service stations can suddenly mean that one area gets loads of new arrivals.
Really? Get down.
So we had quite a few, because even Leicester City they haven't got a motorway. So we have historically and ongoing got a lot of new arrivals, not as many as Northampton, and that's. And then
That's
we
really
had a
interesting.
brilliant person called Bex, who was involved with Open Heaven Church, who worked as a youth worker, and she said we need to do something better for these young people, and so
She's
and that's
at
how
Backer.
Backer. Yeah,
Oh,
and
wow.
it is a great organisation.
Yeah.
And what I mean, we'll finish at saying
Yeah.
what we want you to do.
So we'll stop gassing.
But I'd say, if you're reading some of the press which tells you that these people that come across, they could be terrorists, they're economic migrants, and that you should be scared of them, like anybody you don't know, talk to them, get to know them, and you'll be as impressed as I am by many of the young people, and see just what a benefit that they are to our locality.
Or talk to someone that does work with them, because it's not always,
Yeah.
you can't just start going up to random people and asking them if they're asylum seekers. that wouldn't go down well, but like there's usually, people who work in local council or whatever will be able to tell you. There's people who work for local charities. Yeah, and there's so much information out there, even on like the British Red Cross website.
Volunteer. There you go. Volunteer with Backer, volunteer with the Red Cross.
Do that.
And that way you can accost people.
You're going to cost asylum seekers and ask them questions.
Yeah.
But I think it makes a difference when you have that personal knowledge.
Talk to anyone that works for Backer. You've got friends that work for Backer.
Yeah.
And we will talk for hours enthusiastically about our experiences, and also very heartbreaking stories as well.
We didn't want to put anything too graphic on the video because we didn't know who could be watching, but we've done a couple of takes, and there's some really horrible things that people who are children have gone through. So yeah, it's worth doing your research if you're not sure. People have some really valid concerns around immigration, but this isn't about immigration. This is about desperate people trying to make a new life and get as much dignity back as they can. And I think as a population who've just been through a really hard time of looking after each other, these people, at least we had our security of our homes, a lot of us, we had, even when people were financially struggling, we've had assistance from our governments, we've had the possibility of mortgage breaks and things, so we could keep hold of our houses, and these people have nothing.
And I think we've also realised how interdependent we are, and that means internationally as well, is that we need each other. So we would like you to sponsor us if you're able. If you're not able, then saying just read up on refugees and asylum seekers.
Or cheer me if you see me sweating around Loughborough. Just give me a high five. No, don't give me a high five right now. Give me a wave.
Yeah, I shall. Yeah, don't give her a lift though. That's not allowed.
No, don't give me a lift. Give me a emotional lift.
And I hope to do more than 22 miles. Now you've inspired me. But I am
You know,
walking
with
across
up
the
your
channel.
goal. Up your goal. So we're going to put our sponsorship page links on this video somehow, or in whatever text accompanies it.
And really don't feel that you have to sponsor both of us, or feel bad that you're sponsoring and not me, because mine is a bit pathetic.
It's all going to the same place.
Yeah.
Deb needs help with her sponsorship because she's not got...
My mum's I'm actually raising money for for Beirut at the moment.
She's just doing
because
so
I'm
much charity work, basically, that she's not got time to put in all these miles, but she's doing a lot, so she needs your sponsorship.
Sponsor Willow.
Sponsor Willow, because she's adorable and she demands attention. And also, yeah, just any support, really, even if it's just verbal, even if it's like, you got this, because I'm not convinced I have, because it is a long way, would be great.
Yeah. Well, thank you for watching this.
Well done if you made it to the end.
Right. To the next exciting episode.
Oh, yeah. That'll mean me dead on the floor after I've done it.
Thanks.
Bye.